Hello everyone, this is Mini Ninja speaking. For today's episode, we're going to be looking at the Beast Deities God of War Anhur figure, which, how shall I put this, is part of a new line of toys that happens to share very distinct articulation setups that strongly resemble SH Figure Arts toys. And from the nature of the packaging you can see here, which is talking about general gods, which are half animal, half human things, it seems to be, in the setup there, and come with these extra boxes on the side, is an entirely new toy line, and certainly is not legally distinct Kong Studios. Yes. Now, just as a general aside, just skip the thing, these are entirely amusing packages for the pen holder and the emotional bookmarks here, but we'll go into that a little bit more later. Now, unboxing Anhur here. As you can kind of see, it's kind of a weird clamshell compared to more standard Bandai toys, reminiscent of a certain company that won't be named again until a little later. And the actual accessory parts don't appear in the clamshell proper, but are rather tucked in right behind the figure in the box, and are in these Ziploc bags that are included directly in there, covering some more general human hands, 2 animal hands, and a crossed arms piece, which is also actually pretty well handled in terms of a general presentation. Now, as we're doing the articulation test here, or in a second I should say after a quick height measurement, which is the figure stands at a little above 6 inches tall, 6 1/4 if you want to go by the tip of the ears, being generous. You'll notice that most of the figure itself is not really painted whatsoever, but is in fact composing of various colored plastics which have been assembled in order to create the overall torso look and the various other bits and pieces, as well as a combination of both softer kind of rubbery material as well as a stiffer plastic and stuff in between, frankly. Now, as a result, it is a bit of a plain appearance, especially on the head, which is, as far as I can tell, entirely unpainted, but because of the way they've assembled it, everything is extremely clean in its appearance, and frankly I don't see any weird deviations and not any real serious gapping issues. Now, in terms of the articulation itself, it's based off more the 3.0 style of SH Figure Arts articulation, and in doing so, they have achieved something quite good here. It's actually incredibly smooth to move this toy, and in terms of the butterfly joints, those are incredibly good. This toy is actually a dream to handle, I'm not going to lie. All the shoulder bits and elbow and wrist articulation great. You got a really nice ab crunch going on there, and everything kind of tilts side to side, no issue. Doesn't feel excessively stiff, doesn't feel very loose. Everything will hold its pose up there. Now, in terms of the hip articulation, yep, it's a bit more kind of actually a generous range, even with the skirt there, because the skirt is made out of a very nice soft plastic, kind of rubbery material. Honestly, everything is really good when handling this thing. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself here, but everything moves as supposed to. I think the only thing which was maybe a bit tighter than I would have expected were those ankle joints because of the way they've been set up there. However, the ankle joints being nice and stiff does help to support this toy when you pose it in all sorts of ways, so that's actually a good issue to have. And the tail itself is fully articulated. What I will say in this case is a minor quibble for the paw hands here. They're a bit loose on the ball pegs here. They will pop on and off easy enough, but they kind of swivel around too much because they're very loose fitted. Mind you, let's be honest, those are not the intended hands on this toy. And on that note, let's give up the ghost and talk about what this figure is actually supposed to be, and that would be fan character Tablos from the Dragon Ball AF webcomic. So the pen holder is in fact the real head or hairpiece, and the bookmarks are the overall faceplate package, which they had to have separated for assorted legal reasons, as you can kind of imagine. Now, taking a quick look at the faceplates here, very nicely detailed, mostly clean application, although I will notice that there's a curious coloration choice for the sideburns, as we'll be revealing in a second or kind of following up on. And in terms of the hair, overall a very nice, kind of admittedly very pointy piece as well. But as we kind of try to get this thing assembled on camera here, I kind of run into my first real problem with this figure, being that the headpiece, or the faceplates, don't actually fit on there quite as well as I'd hoped. Now, to explain what's going on here, or at least the issue I had on my copy of this, as it turns out, the faceplates have 3 different spots on them of interest. The 2 exterior pegs that are meant to click into the hair, and a small gap or cavity in the center part that is supposed to be pegged into with the hair piece in order to kind of keep everything nice and tightly fitted. Now, that being said, that only works when the centerpiece is correctly sized. As it turns out, it's a bit variable on mine and is actually visually different just from the plain eye, and in this case, is ever so slightly too small for most of my faceplates to fit on the rest of the head properly. Now, it's actually an incredibly easy fix. A few quick turns of I believe it was a 2.5mm screw bit, just to expand the holes in the center ever so much on the faceplates, will fix this up enough that you'll be able to slip them on from there on out without too much hassle. Because frankly, it's really more the exterior pegs that are the ones that are really helping to support this, and the middle one is just that little extra support. Small note though, just don't apply too much pressure on this, otherwise you might go through the face. You don't need to really apply any pressure, in fact, just more twisting to expand the opening. Now, for the main hair bit, as you can see, separated into 3 separate parts there, so it has actually really good swiveling range overall, and has a nice heft on it. That being said, this hairpiece is also the cause of my second issue with this toy. As we remove the Anhur head, which as you can see is indeed every bit as plain as it looked when you had it on there, you can see that the overall ball peg is actually a double-ended ball joint, which is part in the body and part in the exposed end as opposed to going into the headpiece or the new hair. That being said, it seems based on the various bits and pieces I've been reading around and general complaints, this is actually a much tighter fit for a lot of people than it should be, and in fact required extra instructions being uploaded online to kind of try to help people in order to make this fit. Now, at least in my copy, I was able to determine that the reason it was doing so poorly, despite following the instructions in order to actually fit in there, is because the actual opening on the hairpiece for the ball peg was too shallow, meaning it was not deep enough in order to actually what's the word I'm looking for? To actually fit in the ball peg as it was supposed to. Meaning it would, even with the right amount of pressure or just a ton of pressure to really get in there, it would just keep popping out. And it would never properly stick in there. Now, I will be frank, the fix you see me messing with here is not wholly recommended, just because, frankly, it has a lot of possible ways to backfire if you do it wrong. And basically that was to take a drill bit, you see a triangular one here, but I changed to a circular one off camera, to expand or deepen the opening in order to better fit it in there. Did it work? Technically, yes. How it backfired, though, is that I made the opening at the base of the headpiece too wide by ever so much of its margin, so it is no longer as tight of a fit as it should have been. And while I can get the head to overall fit on there, so as you can see here, it is now able to fit on the body without too much hassle. The problem is, trying to get the head to tilt up and down, especially with all the weight that it has on there, is no longer ideal. It frankly just is too loose in order to really tilt forward or backward without falling back into a more default position in the back. Unfortunately, that one's on me. I should have been a little more careful on that, but at least you might learn from my lesson on that one, and be a little more careful if you try to do a similar modification on your own piece. Now, as we move on from my unfortunate folly here to look at the other accessories that come with this toy, we can kind of see that the various hands on there, which are quite a many, are using the same sort of plastic that was used for the main parts of the body there, so same shading and everything, and are honestly pretty standard fare for your general SH Figure Arts line of toy stuff. Namely a series of fists, some instant transition hands, some very scrabby / martial art hand, and interesting enough, these ones that are meant to have some kind of a key effect in them, but since we don't have an actual key effect with this toy, I'm not quite sure what the intended ones for those are, since those are some rather large pegs on the hands there. So that's kind of left up to a mystery, I'm afraid. Now, for the crossed arm bits, we're only going to talk about them, and unfortunately I'm not going to show them on camera this one, because as it turns out, when I was setting up for that particular shot, I noticed that the pegs on the shoulders for the cross arm bit are actually visibly wider than the ones that come with the regular arms themselves. Now, how that might be important? While you could heat up the cross arm bits to fit them into the regular shoulders there, if you leave them in there for a while, I'm kind of concerned that they might stretch out the shoulder pegs a bit much, which would make switching back to the regular arms a little more difficult, because now it would be a loose fit compared to the honestly general ideal fit that they have right now. So, unfortunately, I'm just going to have to pass on that for this one. Now, I actually want to end this particular review bit by doing a quick side-by-side comparison to just really sell the point on overall, for at least for the body, how well this compares to both official and other unofficial releases. As you can see here, in terms of the general presentation of details and such, this matches perfectly well with the official Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and even with the unofficial Super Saiyan 4 Vegito here, which is slightly larger than it should be, frankly, with the rest of the toy line. Tablo still stands above it by quite a bit, but in terms of its proportions, it fits in so much nicer. And, trust me, articulates much, much better than that particular toy. So, all in all, this thing is, I would say, leaps and bounds above a lot of the different Kong releases I've had up to this point, which you might have known is a bit of a troubled past. But the only thing I can say that keeps this from being what I consider a near-perfect toy is that whole head part. The hair bit seems to be a overall production issue of some sort, because there have been more than a few complaints about how that thing fits on there, or in my case, didn't fit at all and required quite a lot of modification to make work. Perhaps next time we'll get that perfect figure, but for now, thanks for watching, folks. Catch you another time.